One of the patterns I'm currently working on includes a variation on Crocodile Stitch. You can see the dragon scales here. You can see how they all layer and look like proper scales, except traditional Crocodile Stitch tends to have round scales, not pointed ones. So that's what I'm going to show you today, is the traditional Crocodile Stitch with round scales. I've made a base of 2 rows of double crochet 23 stitches long. In US terms, that's single crochet. The rest of the Crocodile Stitch is done mostly in trebles, which in US is doubles. I've also done 4 chain. Now those 4 chain count as your first treble and 1 chain. As our chain counts as our first treble, we don't need to use the first stitch, and we also need to miss a stitch, so we're not using that one, which means we need 2 treble crochet into the next stitch and 1 chain, miss 2 stitches and 2 treble crochet into the next stitch, and 1 chain, and do this all the way to the other end. And to finish off, we need just 1 treble in our last double crochet. I'm changing colours here purely to show you how this works. It's much easier to see the effect if you use different colours. However, all the same colour looks good, and if you want multicolours, I suggest you use self-striping yarn like I've used for the dragon scarf. This next row we're going to start making the scales. To make the scales we need to work over each pair of trebles. So we work down this treble and back up the other one. And the way to do that is yarn over, turn it around so you've got the treble facing you, work 5 trebles over the side of your treble as if it were a chain space. Pull it flat to straighten it up, turn it around and work 5 trebles over the next treble. Then work a slip stitch between the next pair of trebles. And you can see there's our scale. Now some of you may have noticed that these are the backs of the stitches that you can see, and the fronts are there. Lots of people work their crocodile stitch the other way around so that the fronts of the stitches are showing, not the backs. I prefer the backs to show. The reason being is they tend to sit flatter. I will be working it the other way for another video, and I'll be doing a comparison for both ways, which you may have already seen. Carry on working all the way along, so you do a scale over that one, slip stitch, scale, slip stitch and scale. There you go, 4 scales. And to finish off, because we don't have a pair here, we need to slip stitch to the 3rd of the 4 chain here, just to finish that off. Now I'm going to change colour again, just to show you how this all works. So I'm doing this one. 4 chain, and turn your work. We need to make another row of pairs of trebles to work into. This counts as your first treble and your chain, and we need a pair in this one, and 1 chain, and a pair between these 2, and 1 chain, and just do that all the way to the end. Your final treble goes into the top of your treble over there, which isn't quite so easy to find when you've changed colours. And I'm going back to this lavender colour to do the scales. Now you can see we have a pair of trebles in each scale and a pair of trebles in the trebles. That gives you your foundation for your next row of scales. But this time we want our scales to fall in between these other scales. The way to do that is 1 chain, slip stitch into your first chain space, slip stitch between your next pair of trebles, then work your scale over your next pair of trebles exactly the same way as we did in the first row. And again slip stitch into the next one. You can see that scale falls quite neatly between the 2 in the row below. Do that again to the end. And when you get to the end, slip stitch into your final pair, slip stitch into your chain space, and slip stitch into your 3rd chain. And there you can see your next set fall quite neatly in between there. I'm going to do one more set so you can see how all this lot falls. And we're going to change colour again. 4 chain and turn. This row is done exactly the same as the row below by working a pair of trebles into the middle of each pair of trebles. And 1 chain all the way to the other end. And finish off with a treble into the last treble. And again, I'm changing colour here so that you can see what I'm doing. Turn it around This time we want our scales to fall above the first row of scales. So we need to do a scale over the first one, and then slip stitch into the next one, and do this all the way along the same as we did on the bottom row. When you get to your final scale, slip stitch into the third of the 4 chain at the beginning. And there it is. Now, as I said before, this is the way that I prefer to do the crocodile stitch. I find that it sits flatter, and I just like the way the scales look this way round. This is also the way that I have done the scales for my dragon scarf. However, you should always follow the pattern that you are using and do it the way that they say to do it, because you can end up with it being left-handed or right-handed, and it will look different.